Old friends, new friends, everybody in between. What is going on? Welcome to episode 1049, Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for watching, for listening, however you consume the show. I do appreciate you guys very, very much. We are looking to grow on the audio side. So if you happen to be watching this on YouTube and you're a fan of Talking Buffalo and you want to know how you can help support this show, it's real simple, folks. Just if you're watching this on your phone or on your laptop on the video side, just hit pause. Open up your phone or your laptop, go to Spotify, Apple, wherever you would listen to a podcast, or even if you don't listen to them much, go to one of those apps, type in Talking Buffalo, and hit follow. Literally, that is it. That will help us immensely on the audio side and the algorithm. Big shout out to today's sponsor, of course, Sunny Reds, 1841 Aber Road, just minutes down the way from Highmark Stadium. Great food, great drinks, great vibes. Make sure you go check out Sunny Reds. All right, this is our Friday episode. This is another edition of the Podbag. I absolutely love these. You guys know that. Your questions, your comments, your takes, you control the narrative. I plucked some of the best between our YouTube channel, between my Twitter, a couple emails, and I'm going to respond to them. Mostly Buffalo Bills stuff. I do have a couple Sabres things tucked away at the end. Also, at the end of this episode, after we get through the pod bag, going to debut something here today that I'm going to start doing a lot more on this show. It's going to become a regular feature, and that's spotlight reviews and food reviews of places, businesses throughout Buffalo. I say it all the time on this show. We talk predominantly Buffalo Bills, A, because I love the Bills. I love talking about the Bills. And B, I know the vast majority of the audience is here for Bills talk. I'm dumb, but I'm not that dumb. So I know that. However, I do want to be different. This is Talking Buffalo. It's not just a Buffalo Bills podcast. I like to highlight, or in some cases, if I have to, low light things going on here in Buffalo. And we're going to start doing a lot more of that. I want to be a little bit more of a complete Buffalo podcast as opposed to only Buffalo Bills. So anyway, all that to get to what I'm talking about here at the end. We're going to do a food review. I went to a place called the Hogi Stop on Wednesday night. It's on Clinton Street, like Kaisertown, West Seneca border. And I got a review for you on their steak and cheese hoagies. So stay tuned for that. We're going to start doing wing stuff, pizza stuff, sit down restaurants, all kinds of things in the future here. But I'll kind of save those for the end because, again, like I said, I know people predominantly are here for Bills talk. So that'll be at the end of this episode. After, and I can't wait for this, folks. I mean, this is all about me, but after I'm done with this, once I get this in the can, edited, all set to go, I'm actually out for a handful of days. I'm going to Ellicottville, leaving later Thursday, 3.5 days, relaxation, hanging out, some fun with a large group of buddies, like a dozen of us or so. We got a really nice chalet close to being in town in Ellicottville. I can't wait. Going to be a good time. Hopefully make some fun memories. Can't wait for that. So anyway, that's me. Doesn't matter anyway, because this is our last episode of the week. I will be, of course, back for our live taping on the video side Friday night, 9 p.m. Joe from Queens. Always an interesting time with him. But anyway, with no further ado, let's get into this pod bag for today. We'll start with at Cyborg09, who says, lots of candidates. I'm sorry. He said of all the Bills' moves this offseason, of all the moves they made this offseason, which one was your single favorite and why? And by all moves, he meant anything. Any transaction the Buffalo Bills have done this offseason, of all them, which was my favorite one. I like that. I like that a lot. Thanks, Cyborg. Look, lots of candidates, like I was saying. I thought all the extensions were good. All four of them. I liked all of them. I thought they served a real good purpose. And I think they benefited this football team, especially Christian Benford. $19 million or so per year. I mean, I expected that to be a lot more. I mean, at least a few $1 million per year more annually. I think Christian Benford is one of the very best young corners in the entire NFL. And I still think his ceiling is even higher. And considering the fact that he was just a six rounder back in 2022, it's remarkable to me. It really, truly is. How many people missed the boat on him as a prospect, including the Buffalo Bills, who didn't pick him until the sixth round. I mean, that could go down. That 2022 class can end up going down being an all-time great draft class for the Buffalo Bills, more specifically here, Brandon Beane. And the irony in that is that they can have an all-time great draft class when it's all said and done, despite the fact that they got a complete bust in the first round, somebody they moved up for in Kyrie Elam. Just let that sink in. Think about that for a second. The Bills potentially got an all-time great draft class despite the fact that they traded up into the first round and took Kyrie Elam. First of all, just imagine if they took someone else besides Kyrie Elam, how much better that class would be. And just the simple fact that if I told you Kyrie Elam's a bust, but this draft's still going to be an all-time best potentially. It's just wild to me. Again, and it was a very reasonable price, a team-friendly deal. But here's the thing. That's not my pick, by the way. A long-winded way to say that's not my pick. I also like the Josh Palmer signing a lot. Josh Palmer was on my wish list before free agency started. He was one of 3 or 4 receivers I really thought would be a good fit for the Bills. Somebody who wasn't going to completely break the bank, not necessarily be cheap, and he wasn't cheap, by the way, but, a good fit, a good signing. I think Josh Palmer is one of those guys who's got a skill set that really fits what the Buffalo Bills need right now. And I think his best football is still ahead of him. He could end up thriving here as a Buffalo Bill. And the stats last year, 39 catches, 584 yards, 1 touchdown. Not great. Not by any means. But I could see him being a guy who comes in this year, 55 to 60 catches, 750 to 800 yards, 4 to 5 touchdowns easily. And to me, that'd be a great signing. That'd be a really good signing for this football team. But again, he's not my favorite either. My favorite is based on potential. And this is legit, true boomer bust territory here. I get that because he's not even close to being a sure thing. And that, folks, it's the signing of Joey Bosa, the big name, the big ticket, the biggest contract for 1 year. It's Joey Bosa. Year after year after year, the Buffalo Bills fall short. And, the past 2 years, it felt like, the offense left some stuff on the field, no question. Stephon Diggs drop, Dalton Kincaid drop, Trent Sherfield drops. Lots of things were left on the field by the offense. But ultimately, it felt like the offense played good enough for the Bills to get past the Chiefs. The past 2 years specifically, 3 of the last 4, if you go back to the 2021 13-second debacle. But if somebody on defense made a key play when it mattered most in the second half against the Chiefs, the outcome is probably different. And the Bills go to at least 1 Super Bowl by this point. Joey Bosa, and admittedly, again, a big if he can stay fully healthy, Joey Bosa has game-wrecking ability. I don't think other players on this D-line have that. I think there's some good to really good players. Ed Oliver looked good in the playoffs last year. He's a difference maker. Greg Rizzo, despite the fact that he was god-awful in the AFC Championship game, a complete no-show, hurt the team against the Chiefs. On the whole, I think he is a solid, good player. But I'm talking about a game wrecker, like what they wanted Von Miller to be back in 2022. And when it comes to Bosa, I don't think his stats are going to be anything to marvel at with the Buffalo Bills this year, because in part, even if he is healthy, I think there's going to be some significant load management with him, which there should be. But with load management and with good health fortune, Joe Bosa could be exactly what the Buffalo Bills ultimately need to get to a Super Bowl. And then you get guys like Groot and Ed Oliver, the rookie TJ Sanders, who has some interior pass rush juice, some other guys on that defensive line. They become more complementary as opposed to I am depending on Greg Rizzo to get a big sack on third down in the fourth quarter of a game, or Ed Oliver. I'm looking at that with Joe Bosa. So I'm going with him for what he could potentially do for the Buffalo Bills down the stretch. It's not about October and November to me, not anymore. And it shouldn't be about that to you either. It's time to really start grading this team on a curve. This is not a team that should be happy to be in the playoffs anymore. What they do in the regular season only means that they made the playoffs. Ultimately, you need to judge these players and this team as a whole on what they do in January. And Joe Bosa was a signing intended to do something in January. So anyway, I'm going Joe Bosa. At Filthy Beast 79. Got a couple Gabe Davis incoming takes here, so be prepared. Gabe Davis, his whole career, this is from, not from me, from Filthy Beast 79. Gabe Davis, his whole career is based on the 13 seconds game. After that, he is the epitome of a Jag, just another guy, a player, which is the last thing a team like the Buffalo Bills need, considering how many similar ones they already have on the roster right now, a wide receiver and many other positions. All right, thanks for that. Look, 13 seconds obviously is the highlight of Gabe Davis's career. 13 seconds would be the highlight of Justin Jefferson's career or Tyreek Hill's career right now. Let's not act like that's not one of the most productive wide receiver games in the history of the NFL, right? But, and I get that, it is obviously, it's his career highlight, but let's also not act like Gabe Davis is 2024 Chase Claypool at this point either. I mean, he did have 836 yards and 746 yards for the Bills in his 2 seasons after the big game, the 13 seconds game. Was that up to what the standards we put on him, standards that I put on him? No. I remember arguing with people on Twitter, and I was wrong, saying that Gabe Davis was going to be a top 20 receiver in the NFL going forward, and he wasn't. But again, 836 yards, 746 yards the next year, 14 touchdowns, 7 in each season. That's not bad. He is a kind of a big play, all or nothing type guy who lacks consistency. He does, especially with the hands. No question about it. He's far from a perfect player. He's far from a great player. But I do think he's more than just another guy. I think he has the ability to be more than just another guy. I'll also say this too, and it's easy to forget because it feels like we've been talking about Gabe Davis for so many years. 2021 feels like a lifetime ago right now. But let's not forget something. This young man just turned 26 years old a month ago. So he's not old. He's not somebody in there's even his early 30s. He's not Amari Cooper. He's still not trying to hang on to a career. He's still young enough that maybe he hasn't played his best football yet. At Jay Slater 89 says he was an interception waiting to happen when targeted. We're talking about Gabe again here. Giving Josh the option to throw to him again after cleaning up his turnovers is like locking a recovering alcoholic in a brewery. Man, it's kind of harsh, bro. Kind of harsh, man, but it's kind of funny. And look, and to some extent, also fair about Gabe Davis. Josh did have some very bad turnovers when Gabe Davis was the target. Some of them were horribly thrown, forced footballs from Josh Allen, trying to get him the ball. Others were straight up on Gabe Davis. I still remember because I got pissed off about it at the time, and I still don't think fondly of it. But you go to that Thursday night Denver game a couple years ago, and James Cook fumbles on the first drive, and which was a good play by the Denver player. I don't remember who the player was anymore. But anyway, he took a seat on the bench for a couple series because of that. Very next series, Josh throws a ball that goes literally off Gabe's hands, and it's a turnover and interception, and Gabe Davis is right back out there after that. But anyway, some turnovers for sure on Gabe Davis. But here's the thing. I would like to think, at least like to think, that Josh Allen took the next step in his development last year, protecting the football better, making better decisions with the football, regardless, of who the targets were. I think the growth and maturity of Josh Allen matters. So I wouldn't. There's reasons to not want Gabe Davis, plenty of them actually, but I wouldn't say that because he's in a Bills uniform, Josh Allen is going to change who he became last year and start forcing throws into Gabe in double coverage because of that. I don't buy. One more, then we'll get to a quick break here. At Buff Commander says, give me Tyrell Shavers over Gabe Davis 100 out of 100 times. I said this on yesterday's show, by the way. I'll throw this out there again, too. It's that time of year, folks. Free agency, for the most part, is over. The draft just ended. We're in between right now. Rookie mini camp actually starts from some of you are listening to this on Friday. There'll be OTAs down the road a little bit. Mandatory camp, of course, ultimately training camp, the schedule release next week, yada, yada, yada. There's just not a lot going on. So when a polarizing former Buffalo Bill like Gabe Davis becomes available, it's what we do. It's what we talk about. It passes the time and it is something of interest. I'm saying that because a big portion of yesterday's show was dedicated to Gabe. We're talking about him here today. I've seen other Bills content creator shows kind of dedicated to the same thing. It's that time of year, man. It's that time of year. Anyway, back to your Tyrell Shavers over Gabe 100 times. I think ultimately the Bills see things the same way that you do. Again, spending time talking about a guy who almost certainly is not returning. It passes time and it's a little bit of fun, but it's not really productive per se. And the other thing about Gabe too is we measure this as if, oh, well, maybe the Buffalo Bills have interest in bringing Gabe back, and if they do, Gabe Davis is going to sign. Not really true. In fact, still unlikely because A, how much are they going to pay him? Not a lot. It's going to be a prove-it deal. It'll be a prove-it deal wherever he ends up. But so money's a factor, and also his role is a factor. And Gabe Davis would have to ultimately decide that my best opportunity to play meaningful football and give meaningful production and ultimately get another meaningful payday has to be with the Buffalo Bills. I don't see that. Never say never, but I don't see that. There's teams out there where they could use Gabe Davis more than the Buffalo Bills can. The Pittsburgh Steelers just traded Pickens to Dallas. They got a hole there. The New England Patriots got a gazillion receivers, but after Stephon Diggs is coming off an ACL, they could probably use somebody with some proven production like Gabe Davis. It'd be kind of wild, too, to see Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis together again, but in the same division with New England. Point is, there's plenty of teams out there right now that probably can use a Gabe Davis or at least the thought of a Gabe Davis a lot more than the Buffalo Bills. All right, let's do this. Let's take a quick break, come back. I'm going to fly through the rest of these, and then we will get into that food review, like I said. The Hogi Stop coming up after the break. Let's continue on here, folks, with the mailbag. Still a little Gabe Davis stuff coming up here. At Kevin Harge 535 says, that's a small town mindset. Weak reasoning. Special teams is overrated. I like any good player. No receiver on our team to date is untouchable. That's in response to what I think is an obvious thing that if the Bills have a fifth or sixth receiver on the team, they got to be able to play freaking some special teams. You're right about the last part of your take, Kevin. No receiver on this team to date is untouchable, and they certainly shouldn't be. And let's also, and you didn't bring this up, but I will. Keon Coleman, how the Bills feel about him might have a lot to do with what, if any, interest they have in Gabe Davis. If the Bills feel really good about Keon Coleman going into year 2, then Gabe Davis shouldn't even be a thought in the meeting room at this point, because he does basically what Keon Coleman does or what you want him to do. Keon Coleman can block. Keon Coleman's a bigger guy. Keon Coleman can, when things break down, he can improvise and make plays. Gabe Davis does a lot of that as well. Gabe Davis is one of the best blocking wide receivers in all football, period. And obviously, we've seen through his time in Buffalo, he finds a way to get down the field and make big plays. I kind of feel like that's a Keon Coleman type. So if you feel good about Keon, you ain't thinking about Gabe Davis, I don't think. If you're not feeling great about Keon, if you don't trust him and you are concerned about him being able to take that next step to be significantly better than what he was last year, which I think we can all agree on should be the expectation for Keon Coleman right now. If you don't feel great about him, then taking a long look potentially at Gabe Davis would make a lot of sense. Back to your point, though, about special teams is overrated. Look, whether special teams is overrated or not, it's part of the game, dude. And your non-starters, especially at the skill position players, they got to be able to play some special teams. At least most of them do. You can't have 5 wide receivers. Gabe Davis would be 6 wide receivers on this team who don't play them. Think about this. Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir, Josh Palmer, Curtis Samuel, and for now, Elijah Moore. That's your top 5 right now wide receivers. None of those dudes play special teams. None of them. You're going to sign a 6 wide receiver, Gabe Davis, who hasn't played a lick of special teams since 2021. I don't buy that. You have to have guys who could play there. Somebody's got to be out there. Would you rather the Bills sign bottom depth wide receivers who don't play special teams, and as a result, because you do that, you're going to end up having to have guys like Christian Benford, Keon Coleman, a Taylor Rapp, those guys out there risking getting hurt? Non-starters, even some starters, have to play special teams. You know, DeMar Hamlin plays special teams and he started at free safety. You can't have 6 wide receivers and none of them play special teams. It's just silliness to me, man. At Jazz Unlimited 1, Elijah Moore is an underrated pickup. He will be more of an impact player than any receiver we would have took in the 3rd or 4th round. Sure, it would have been more cost control effective to draft a rookie, but more is more than satisfactory. Nice little wordplay there for this wide receiver room with his skill set that he brings. It also helps. I was a fan of him coming out of college. I hated that the Jets got him. You know what? I remember that draft. I think it was 2021. And I also hated that the Jets got them. Thanks. Thanks, Jazz. I think that's a fair point. Look, 61 catches last year with bummy-ass quarterbacks. Bummy-ass quarterbacks. I keep going back to that because, you know, I think it's true. That said, I do hesitate to put too much stock into that because what were we doing a year ago? What were we doing about a year, 13 months ago? I'll tell you what we were doing. We were putting a lot of stock into the same thing. Talking about Elijah Moore, you know, pretty decent numbers with some shitty ass quarterbacking. And this time a year ago, we were saying the same shit about Curtis Samuel. You know, bummy quarterbacks in Washington. He played with Carolina before that. Go back to 2020. He had a really good season with Carolina. And we said, well, now he gets to play with Josh. Shit's going to change. It didn't really. I would say, for the most part, mediocre results for Curtis Samuel. Now, in fairness to Curtis, toe injury early in the season, I do think that slowed him down. Trying to find his way in this offense. Joe Brady trying to find the right role for him. I would say he made a more significant impact later in the season. He had that long touchdown in the Denver playoff game. I have hopes for Samuel going forward. But my point is, I'm not going to put too much stock into Elijah Moore playing with crappy quarterbacks. Now, that said, again, I wouldn't be surprised either way with Elijah Moore. That's where I'm at with Elijah Moore. Like, neither result would surprise me. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if he comes in and he looks really good and you got to get him on that field more. And he ultimately takes snaps away from Curtis Samuel. Hell, he might take some snaps away from Keon Coleman if he's not looking the part. So I could see that. I could see a scenario where Elijah Moore is a top 4 wide receiver here. Hell, I could even see a scenario where he's a top 3 wide receiver here. That wouldn't shock me. But I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't impress that much either. They don't even make the team. Don't even make the team. And instead, they go with a guy who could do other things. And I keep bringing it up, and even I'm getting annoyed with saying it, but maybe a Terrell Shavers, who, by the way, I still think will make the team anyway, because I think the Bills would keep 6, and he would be that guy because he could play special teams really, really well. But maybe they have 2 guys like Shavers at the bottom of the roster, and then he wouldn't even make it. Again, I hate it. The dreaded special teams that Kevin Howard's 365 hates so much. At Etherboy, unpopular opinion. With all this hype coming out of college, Dalton Kincaid needs, all caps, folks, needs to step up big time this year. I don't think, Etherboy, I don't think that's an unpopular opinion. I don't think that's an unpopular opinion at all. Dalton Kincaid had 673 yards on 73 catches in 2023 as a rookie. That was, and I'm not using it, this is not hyperbole. It literally was one of the best rookie tight end seasons in NFL history. And then we talk about 2024. Guess what? Last year, Dalton Kincaid sucked. Just call it what it is. I'm not afraid to say it. He sucked last year. He sucked by his standards and by his expectations and by the expectations that we put on him last year. And let's be real clear, okay? The knee injury was definitely an issue. It was an issue for sure physically. That's not even debatable. And I think it weighed on him mentally as well. Maybe with his focus, his concentration. And at the end of the day, he dropped a pass. He literally dropped a pass on what was the most important Buffalo Bills play of the entire year. And the Buffalo Bills, I'm not going to say for sure, but the Buffalo Bills very well may have went to the Super Bowl if Dalton Kincaid doesn't drop that pass. Not the easiest catch to make, but absolutely a catch that an NFL pass catcher makes, let alone a first round pick from just 2 years ago. Don't get that twisted. I don't know what stepping up, like you said, would be what it looks like on the stat sheet necessarily, but I do know last year wasn't it. I expect him to be better. 73 catches, maybe that's like he had as a rookie year. Maybe that's a little tiny bit ambitious. Maybe with the philosophy going into, 2 years ago, it wasn't the everyone eats mentality, at least not for the full season. That was their philosophy this year. So maybe he doesn't have 73 catches, but he could still be a significant contributor to this team. So I really don't have a number that I feel good about throwing out there. But one thing I know for sure is he definitely has to be better. At _B Brandon, Joe Brady dead ass drew up a screen to Amari Cooper on 3rd and 10 with a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. LOL, he doesn't get nearly enough shit. You know what, Brandon, dude? I agree with you, man. I agree. That is really flown under the radar because there was the Kincaid drop on 4th down, of course, but it was a terribly timed call and a huge head scratcher at the time and still feels that way today. Joe Brady's got a lot to prove in 2025, despite the offense's overall success. And I know that sounds kind of weird to say. An historically great Bills offense, 30 rushing touchdowns, 30 passing touchdowns, and the offensive coordinator still got a lot to prove. He does. It's kind of like that with some of the players too, and the Bills defense, which just took a shit, man, in the biggest moments. It just did. And so did Joe Brady. Did I say Tom Brady earlier? I don't even remember. Of course it's Joe Brady I'm talking about. But yeah, that Cooper pass call, James Cook not even getting a touch on the final drive, not debatable that Brady had some like brain freezes in Kansas City. And when you're a championship caliber team, like I said earlier in the show, you should be judged a lot more by what you do in January than what you did in November. So again, yeah, plenty to prove with Joe Brady. At Bills Mafia Experience says Cole Bishop showed improvement as the season wore on. He will start unless he takes an obvious step back or gets hurt again. I agree with you, Bills. I got to get a sip of my drink here. I don't know how some of these content creators who have their own solo show, they go 30, 40, 50 minutes without taking a break and don't get nothing to drink. It's just wild to me. But anyway, Cole Bishop, I agree with you. He starts unless he's injured or unless he takes a huge step back, coupled with, I think, Derek Forrest, the free agent signing from Washington. If he looks really, really good at camp in the preseason, could see him being in the mix, or God forbid, Sean McDermott just loves riding DeMar Hamlin so much. And I'm not trying to turn this into a DeMar Hamlin, bashing moment here. I just don't need to see him as a starter. Cole Bishop has room to grow. He can play so much better than he did last year. I feel like with DeMar Hamlin, man, he could start for the next 6 years. What you saw last year, that's what he's going to be. He's going to be fundamentally sound. He's definitely going to be fundamentally sound. And then you're going to see him get exposed athletically. And it's just the type of player he is. It's not going to change. But anyway, I'm not sure how I feel about Cole Bishop right now. I'm going to reserve judgment on him. I wasn't really impressed with him last year as a rookie, but in fairness to him, some pretty tough circumstances that didn't work out in his favor, from getting hurt in the summer and losing valuable time at camp. That certainly hurt him, to kind of getting thrown into the fire a couple times. That Houston game when I think Taylor Rapp was hurt that game. Yeah. And then late in the season when, Hamlin and Rapp were both hurt, he kind of got forced in there. I'd say mixed results. Didn't love it, but we'll see. We'll see. A little too early for that, for me to have a take on him. I think this is the last one here, folks. It is. JW Vocal says, give me one or two surprise Bills cuts. I'm not sure what you would classify as a surprise, but I could see Cam Lewis being a cut candidate because of the DBs that the Bills got in the draft. Obviously, Dane Jackson, Jamarcus Ingram, that goes without saying. Again, not really surprises, though. Damar Hamlin or maybe Force, maybe one of those two guys is a cut candidate. If Rapp and Bishop started safety and the fifth rounder, Jordan Hancock, you see him more as a safety, of really versatile Cam Lewis type who could play different roles, including special teams, but you see him primarily as a safety, and he could be your fourth safety. Maybe whoever doesn't win that number 3 safety battle between Damar and Forrest, they could be a cut candidate. Balin Spector, I could see him getting cut because he can't stay healthy. That's if he doesn't get hurt at camp and end up on IR anyway. The big one, if you force me to say a name, that's a kind of big name, I would say DaQuan Jones, but it would take both Deion Walker looking really, really impressive at camp, and kind of ditto for Dwayne Carter, who would get a lot of work at the one tech. I see no reason to cut DaQuan Jones if you don't need to save some money, because he couldn't save, I think it's $5.5 million after June 1st, although some dead cap will go into the following year. But if you needed that money for something else and you felt good about those guys, I see no reason to cut them, especially with Larry Ogunjobi suspended for the first 6 games. But you never know. Maybe Mitch Trubisky gets beat out by Mike White and he gets cut too. But I don't think there's any shockers for me on tap. At Kevin Harnick says, should have fired Kevin Adams, let Lindy be the president of hockey operations, and bring in folks who know what they are doing. Yeah, right. Instead, we get Terry Bagula telling Adams who he noticed on late night playoff games and to go and get them. Listen, I want you guys, if you're interested in what I feel about the Buffalo Sabres right now, go back and listen to my show yesterday with PK. I mean, I went off multiple times. I just ain't got the energy to do that shit again today. I'm finishing up with you guys now. Then I'm going to pack and I'm going to get ready to go to Ellicottville and have some fun. I don't want to talk about the fucking Buffalo Sabres because it's just going to make my blood pressure just start rising, man. You're not wrong, of course, by the way. You're not wrong. It's a joke that Kevin Adams is staying as GM for his 6th season. It's laughable. But don't worry. No fear, because new special assistant to the general manager, Eric Stahl, is going to fix everything. Next, Last one, actually, and then we're going to get to the food review to end. At SBA says, man, the NHL playoffs are so fun. I hate the Sabres. Yes, 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 yes. I think you speak for a lot of Sabre fans when you say that, my friend. And I ain't got anything to add. It's this team's unlikable as it is at this point after 14 years. They can't even finish in the top half and make the playoffs once. But when you watch the NHL playoffs and it's exciting and it's fun, it just pisses you off. I've said this before. I'm going to say it again. I don't listen to the Google Dolls anymore. And it's not that I don't like the Google Dolls. It's that when I hear some of their songs, it makes me think back to when the Sabres were fucking good and brings back memories that they're good. And it just frustrates me even more that they've sucked for as long as they've had. That's just what it is. All right. I'm going to end this, like I said, with a food review. Going to start doing more of these on the show. I say it all the time. Not a Bills podcast, although I do love my Bills. I love talking about them, all that stuff. I want to do more things. Buffalo food is a very, very big part of the Buffalo culture, the fabric, and I love me some Buffalo food. Well, most of it anyway. What we'll do is I'll tell you about the place a little bit, and then I'm always going to have pros and cons, kind of like a grade, and then if I would recommend it to you or not. And I always advise this, just like I've been doing now for years with wings. Don't take mine or any other person's opinion too strongly. Like, take it with a grain of salt. We all have different tastes. We all have different things that we look for. We all have different things that we want. Food is maybe the most subjective thing on this earth. Not everybody likes the same things. You know, it's kind of like that with wings too. Everyone has their favorite place, somewhere that's overrated, somewhere that's underrated, their favorite type of sauce. It's no different with all kinds of food. So again, just take my personal views with a grain of salt. But all right, so anyway, the Hogi Stop, 2195 Clinton Street. It's kind of like in the Kaisertown, West Seneca border. It was Wednesday night and I was hungry. I was gonna get some wings, but I had some wings the night before my birthday. I had a little hangout with the fam, and we got some pizza and wings at Imperial Pizza. Shout out to them. Of course, I love that place. So anyway, I didn't want wings again. I landed on a steak hoagie. I was just in the mood to go get a steak hoagie. So I go to Hogi Stop. Never been there before. Have no idea what to expect. I get a large steak and cheese hoagie, a 12-inch combo with fries and a Diet Coke. In terms of the pros, elite, and I mean elite tasting steak and cheese. Cooked perfect, blended, shredded perfectly. One of the best shredded blends of steak and cheese on a hoagie I think that I've ever had. No hyperbole. I truly mean it. Another pro, a very generous amount of steak and cheese in their large hoagie. I mean, a lot. It took every single ounce of strength I had to eat that entire thing in one sitting, which technically I didn't, by the way. I ate almost all of it, but then I couldn't quite finish. I took it home, figured I would eat it much later or the next morning, and I ate it like 10 minutes after I got home because it was still good. And I was thinking about wanting to finish it, and I did. But anyway, very, very generous portion for a 12-inch, very generous. There was also another pro, a hint of, I think it might have been like crushed red peppers, I think. And it made it taste unique. Like, there's lots of good steak hoagies in Western New York, places to go get one. This one didn't taste the same. And I think that might be, at least in part, what it was. And then the other pro, if you like side stuff like I do, I got fries. They were fantastic. Crunchy, almost kind of like potato chips in a way. But some of them were soft, just really, really good. And a big bag, too. A big bag. I'm talking almost like Five Guys fries type shit. Pretty big bag. So those are my pros. Cons, a large hoagie. Now, again, and it's big, and I said that. And some of these cons, by the way, could just easily refute as well. All right. But for me, this is a con. A large hoagie with fries and a 16-ounce Diet Coke bottle combo. nearly 27 bucks. Like, that's pricey. Like, if I would have took my wife with me and we got the same exact thing, 54, $55 to go to a, I don't know what I call it, a fast food place, but a place where you go get a sub place, a sub shop, 55 bucks for 2 combos, it just feels like an awful lot. Now, you could also, and I didn't know this at the time, and it still wouldn't matter for me, but now going forward, it does. If you go use Uber Eats, the app, you can get some really good deals. Like I saw that you can get two, not 12-inch, but two 8-inch steaks, which by the way, if they put as much steak, the portions in the 8 inches as they do as a 12, an 8 would be more than enough. And you can get two 8-inch hoagies for 20 bucks. So even if you had a fry and two pops and you took someone else out, that'd only be about 30, 33 bucks. So depending on how you order, it can be expensive. And if you go there and you go get a pickup and you learn the hard way like I did, 27 bucks. My whole point is, man, I just feel like that's a lot of money. Could have used just a little bit more of their hoagie sauce and or it lacked just a little bit of flavor. Little bit, like 5 to 10%. Nothing crazy, but it just felt like I didn't taste. And by the way, when I get my hoagies, I get steak, cheese, and the sauce only. I don't get onions or anything else on it. So I can't speak on that. But the steak and cheese was really good. Just wish it had a little bit more of that saucy flavor to it as well. And then the last thing, which was my only lone true con with this hoagie, at least in this instance, the sub roll that I got, it was really good, but clearly it was taken out of a freezer and then thawed and probably cooked on the grill just before. And the edge on the bottom half of the sub, the edge part of it was definitely a little bit hard and crunchy. And to be honest with you, the very bottom of the roll itself, like the last bite or so, it was literally so hard that I thought might break my teeth if I would have bit it. It was unbiteable. It was too hard. You could tell it was a frozen roll that wasn't thawed out enough, at least at the bottom. That's my only true lone gripe. But overall, to summarize, I thought it was a very, very, very good steak and cheese hoagie. One of the better ones that I've had personally. Like I grew up on the west side. I grew up around Jim Steakouts from the time I was a little kid to being a teenager to being a little bit underage, going to the bars, but you would sneak in anyway. And everybody who went on the Elmwood Strip would end up at Jim's Steakout near Elmwood and East Delavan at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Been doing it almost my whole life. Jim's Steakout has always been my personal favorite, my personal go-to, at least the OG locations, like the one on Allen or the one on Elmwood. I know there's like a gazillion of them now, but the OG ones have always been my favorite. This is right there with them. That's what I'm getting at here. This was really, really good. I'm still thinking about, the fries and the drink being $27 is too much for a sub shop. But again, maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me. The food was really good. And a 12-inch hoagie and those fries, literally, I eat it as a meal twice. Like I still had 3/4 of the bag of fries left. And like I said, when I got home, about maybe 15 to 20% of the sub left. I could have had another meal out of it. So I'll definitely be back. Let's just put it that way. Because I think anytime you go somewhere the first time, whether you love it or whether you hate it, you always got to give it a second chance. If it's not good, you give it a second chance because maybe you just caught them on a bad day. Maybe the wrong cook was there. Lots of circumstances. You go and you see if it's consistent. On the plus side, if you really love something, I think you need to go back a second time as well because at the end of the day, it's all about consistency. The best places, and I keep referring back to wings because that's what I know better than anything else. But like what makes 9/11 the GOAT is that you could go there 20 times and you're going to get the same flavor. It's going to taste the same. It's going to be the same every single time. Bar Bill, exact same. Kelly Corners, those type of places, consistency. There's other places where I'll go for wings and I'm like, oh my God, these are top 5, top 10 wings. Then I get someone else and I go back with them. I'm like, you got to check these wings out. I can't recommend these to you enough. Yada, yada, yada. We go back and the wings kind of suck. They don't taste nothing like they did the first time. So I will go back again because to me, the ultimate test is consistency. But for now, I absolutely would recommend it. And if you're picking it up, go on Uber Eats, apparently, because you can get like 2 hoagies for around 20-ish bucks, 20 or 2 8 inches. So I give it a solid B. I'll tell you what, solid B plus even. So there you go. All right, that's gonna do it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching, for listening. And like I said, I know food reviews, or I'm gonna do restaurant spotlights and things like that going forward, but I'm going to save them for the end because I know that's not for everybody. Some people don't give a shit about food or what I think about food, and I can completely respect and understand it. So I'll kind of stuff this kind of content for the end. But for everyone else, like I said, thank you so much. Even if you are subscribed, which by the way, if you're watching this, make sure you hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. But also, like I said, go to Spotify and Apple, please, and hit follow there. It really will help us grow the show. Have a good weekend. I'm going to enjoy myself in Ellicottville for a couple days. I'll be back on the video side live, 9 p.m. Sunday. Joe from Queens. Make sure you're there.